Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again. My name's Peter, this is Thailand Bound. If you haven't been here before, I talk about all things Thailand. Today I'm going to be reading out 3 viewers' stories. That's 3 stories that have been sent in to me by viewers. The first 2 stories are brand new to this channel. The third one I did read out about 4 years ago, but it's a very good story and I thought it'd be a good story to read out for people who have subscribed to my channel in the last 3 to 4 years. Okay, so I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to jump into the first story and I think you're going to enjoy these this morning.
สวัสดีค่ะ
I thought I would share a funny experience I had in Vietnam. It was September 2001 and I was 31 and single from Israel. In our group of friends there was an ex-girlfriend of one of my friends. She was looking for a trip to Southeast Asia and we decided to go to Vietnam since both of us had already been to Thailand. Our route was from Saigon to north and we've planned to fly back from Saigon, in brackets Ho Chi Minh City. My female friend could make friends anywhere and we met many new people along the way. Everywhere we went, none of the locals could understand how we were travelling together without being romantically involved or married. To all the tourists, it seemed just as unusual. My friend got married not long after our Vietnam trip. The tourist area in Saigon has bars with bar girls and freelancers. At first, I only noticed them and nothing more. When we reached Nha Trang, I saw a beautiful local girl in a restaurant and tried to talk to her. She didn't know a single word of English, so the waitress translated for us and said the girl wanted to invite me for a beer and then see my hotel. After the beer, we went to my hotel with all of her friends. They just wanted to see where I was staying and then they left. Using hand gestures, we agreed to meet the next day. I don't remember her name. She came with her sister and signaled that she wanted to eat. We went to eat and I paid. Afterwards, we walked around with her sister following us like a shadow. At some point, the girl and I started kissing while sister kept monitoring us constantly. She kept pointing at her finger as though she wanted a ring, and I replied with hotel and aerobics. That didn't lead to anything. Later, I told the guys we were hanging out with all about it, and one of them suggested I play along and promise her marriage and so on. However, I just saw a poor, hopeless girl, and with the recommendation of my female friend, I decided to end it. We met once at the restaurant and we didn't see each other again. As we continued our trip, I noticed that Hanoi had many more beautiful ladies, but no bar girls or scenes like Saigon. When we returned to Saigon, I saw the bar girl again. One night we went to a bar and I noticed some working girls outside. I told my friend I would step out for a few minutes. I approached the girls and started talking to the one I liked best. We agreed on a price and she led me to a nearby cheap hotel. She asked if I was pleased with her. I thought, wow, an honest working girl. We had our aerobics and afterwards I told her I wanted to get back to the bar. She said she was mine for the whole night, but I was already happy with what I had had. Not sure how I thought of it, but I told her my wife was waiting at the bar. So we left. When I returned to the bar, my friend asked where I had gone and some of our friends had left and she was alone. I told her everything and she laughed. She wanted to see the girl, so we went outside. My friend suggested we hold hands like a married couple. When I saw the working girl, she was embarrassed and covered her face out of shame. What an innocent working girl. We didn't approach her and I was genuinely surprised by her reaction. We laughed about this story for many years afterwards. Now, when I think about it, I hope I don't ruin any of her dreams to marry foreign men. That's a bit of a strange story, really. I was kind of thinking about if he was there with that woman who was just a friend, like a travelling companion, why would he pretend to the girl from Saigon that it was his wife? I mean, surely they're just playing with her, making fun, and Yeah, I don't think it was necessary. I don't think she hung her face or hid her face in shame. I think she was just slightly embarrassed about the whole thing. You know, you would do, wouldn't you, if you just slept with someone and you seen them passing with their partner or wife, husband, whatever. Okay, just trying to analyze that one a little bit. Let's jump into story number 2. Let me tell you about my own story and my first experience of Thailand this year. My name is Steve and I'm 54 and from London. 2023 and early 24 were tough times for me. I'd recently lost my mother, my last close family member, and finally, after 18 months of stress, I had sold the house and needed a good break. Life had been tough. Thailand had long been on my radar, years in fact, for a break, but I thought I'd never get there. Until this year. Long story short, in April this year, I arrived near Jomtien. Now, please bear in mind, I never came here for love, romance, or anything like that. It was purely a stress reliever. Finally, I arrived at Suvarnabhumi Airport and my senses were tingling with excitement and adventure again. What would I find, see, or experience travelling on my own again? After arriving at the Jomtien bus station, 143 baht for the coach, finding my hotel and checking in, I headed out for my first look at Thai bars, food and whatever came my way. The first beer bar I stopped at changed my life forever. One of the 3 women came up and asked what I wanted to drink. I looked up from my phone and saw a beautiful lady about my age smiling at me like summer. Within moments, ice cold Leo beer was running down my throat. She introduced herself as Ma'am, and after buying her a beer, she ate with me. She introduced herself as Ma'am, and after buying her a beer, she sat with me. I explained it was my first time in Thailand and that I needed cheering up. She just knew there was something bothering me. The way she looked at me, it felt like she looked into my soul and understood me. I felt a tingle inside. There was something different about Ma'am. Her look was different. Her whole persona was different. She didn't jump all over me, give me a sob story or press me for drinks. It was entirely up to me when I wanted to talk or buy her a drink. She never ripped me off or tried anything on me. After about 3 to 4 days, during a quiet moment, she explained she had 2 kids, both grown up and settled in good jobs. This, by the way, turned out to be completely true. After about 2 weeks, while sipping Sangsom and Coke for bravery, I asked Ma'am if she could take me out for a few hours before she started work at 1 p.m. to show me around a bit more. She had a car too. I wasn't sure how she would react, but her face lit up with delight and she said yes. The next day, we headed off. Day after day, she would pick me up, taking me here, there and everywhere, teaching me a little more Thai, showing me what to eat, things not on the menu, and of course, showing me some sights. But she was also growing closer to me, holding my hand a little more tightly, every time becoming more affectionate and giving me a kiss near my lips. Her company extended to dropping me off at my hotel most nights, although I never asked her to stay. I really didn't want to fall in love with Ma'am, but on the last night before I returned to the UK, she stayed and it finally happened. It was heaven. After I returned to the UK, we stayed in touch regular, every day in fact. After a few depressing months back home, I decided it was time to head back to Thailand to see Ma'am. Yes, I was falling in love with her and I felt she had the same feelings for me. As you can imagine, we had a wonderful time together, this time for nearly 2 months. I want to point this out. I had taken her out of the service job she liked, not bar find her or anything like that, but I completely understood that she still needed cash for expenses. I asked her and she calmly and methodically explained her finances, the cost of living for a month. I gave her enough to last until I come back again. Not staggering amounts as some might think, but enough to help her out. After trip number 3, yes, trip number 3 this year, we were in love. Would you believe it? Finally, I have met her beautiful mum, sister, brother, and all of the family. I'm learning more and more, meeting the village boss, his wife and family. A huge privilege, sitting, eating and drinking with these lovely people, even cooking for them, which I enjoy immensely. Yes, we've had our arguments, concerning money. I've never seen 500 baht spent so quickly, for example. Only 500 baht, I hear you say. Sometimes I have to put my foot down at the ATM machine. Let's be honest, who doesn't like being spoiled? But I know she is genuinely a woman I can trust. She buys my clothes, food and phone credit, washes me, cuts my nails and pampers me in a way I've never experienced. During my last stay, I ended up in the hospital with a broken leg, and Mam looked after every last hair on my body. She was an angel to me, soothing me back to good health. I'll be returning to Thailand soon, to a lady who will surely one day be my wife. What I can say is this. Yes, she worked in service, beer and food, where men obviously tried it on with her. She's beautiful for her age, but I know she stays true to me. She is fiercely loyal, and no truer word was spoken than this. When a Thai woman gives her love, she gives her everything. She can be a bit jealous now and then, as women are around the world. But why not? I'm a handsome man. Just joking, not really. I deal with it well. In fact, I'm quite flattered by it all. When it happens, I give her a big kiss in front of everyone and tell her I love my wife to be. To be continued. Thanks, Peter. I hope you read this and find it good, clean content. This is 100% honest, and I'll be back in Thailand in late February or early March. Hua Hin this time. Okay, well, look, you know me, I'm really cynical. I wish the guy the best of luck. There are a few red flags there for me, but you know, I can pick red flags out of out of any story. The one thing he said that she lets him kiss her in front of him in public. I mean, obviously that's not something that's normally done in Thai culture. He hadn't met her long. She did work in the service industry. Again, I'm being cynical, and I do wish the guy the best of luck. Let's hope we hear part 2 of that story, and let's hope it's good news and not a crash and burn story. Right, okay, look, I'm going to go into story number 3 now. This is the longest of all the stories today, the 3 stories. This is quite long. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the upload, I have read this out before nearly 4 years ago, but it's a really good warning to guys who come out here once or twice. They think they found the girl of their dreams, like the guy in the last story, just as an example, and things can go very downhill, very, very, very slippery downhill very fast. All can appear to be good. You can be reeled in slowly but surely, and listen to this story, try to analyze it, and just keep this in the back of your head if you ever do fall in love in Thailand. Okay, let's jump straight into our third and last story this morning. Many people forget that we're all newbies in Thailand at one time. This story is my memories of when I was a newbie. I'm a seasoned traveller now, but my first trip to Thailand was a roller coaster ride that I wouldn't pay to go on again. I'll give you some background first. I had just turned 50 at the time, living in England, and I was going through a divorce. I had been married for 25 years and had a daughter who was 22 at the time. I didn't really want to be single again at 50, but my wife had been unfaithful to me, so I felt I had no choice other than a divorce. I was emotionally vulnerable, but really wasn't aware of it at the time, which was to play a decisive role in a couple of months. I'd never been to Thailand or Asia, so I researched and made arrangements online to stay at a hotel in Pattaya, which was not far from the beach and was located in Naklua, which is in the north of Pattaya and not the main beach road. I looked on a Thai dating site, something I had never considered before, but it is difficult to be alone when you have been married for so many years. I messaged 3 women from the first 5 pages I looked at and received just one reply from a lady who apparently had never been married and was aged 32. The lady told me that she worked in a graphic design company in Pattaya, owned a car and was a Buddhist. We continued to chat on the WhatsApp and learn more about each other daily. We sent pictures and I explained my situation. The lady's name is Nang, and she seemed genuine enough. She sent me photographs of her at temples, at work, in the car and wearing her uniform. Nang also told me that she was the head of accounting in the company that she worked for. Our conversations focused on what her plans were. I didn't know mine. We discussed her work, spoke about temples and a little about her family back home in another part of Thailand. It was about 2 days before my flight home, and I hadn't heard from Nang at our usual times of messaging, so I continued to wait to hear from her at the UK, I did not want to call her in case she was working or busy with family. Anyway, eventually at 6 p.m. her time in Thailand, which was midday in the UK, I got a message from Nang saying she had been in a car accident. I felt a bit panicky because I didn't know the severity, but after about an hour, Nang had messaged me and told me that she was in hospital. Not badly hurt though. I had her phone number, although we had only ever spoke once because her English wasn't very good, as opposed to her text messages, which had gotten better thanks to Google Translate. Nang said something about money, but passed the phone over to someone who apparently was a doctor who could speak English. He said Nang was shy, but asked if I could help with any medical bills. I knew she got a salary at the end of the month, which at the time just happened to be the very next day. I had told Nang previously that I was planning another trip to Thailand in August. The second doctor told me that Nang said she would pay me back all of the money when I returned to Thailand. As I mentioned at the beginning of this story, I was emotionally vulnerable at the time and didn't suspect anything, so I sent Nang 50,000 baht that she asked me for, truly believing that she intended to pay me back when I returned to Thailand. Nang was very thankful and said her sister had picked the money up from a bank near to the hospital. It was then that she stunned me with a question. She asked if I could still father children. This kind of threw me off balance a bit. I guess so, I told her. I really want a baby, she said. I thought maybe she had a bigger bang on the head from her accident than I had originally thought, so I didn't say much more about it. I asked her to get some rest and we'd talk about it later. Our next messaging session was about having children again. I just said that I was 50 years old and having a baby was the last thing on my mind. She seemed dejected and I felt a bit bad at how blunt I'd replied, so I added that I wasn't again having one. I just didn't think it was the first thing on my mind. I really want to see you, she said. I wasn't infatuated with man back then. I just didn't know it. I arrived back in Bangkok mid-afternoon and had arranged to meet up with Nang. I'd arranged for a short 3-day holiday to Koh Samui and we would be flying at around 8:30 a.m. the next day. Nang had arranged to have some days off work, so we had agreed to meet at my hotel and have some dinner. Nang arrived at my hotel at about 7 p.m. in a newish white Toyota. We had dinner together and it was now 10 p.m. The plan had been that Nang would go home after dinner and return back in the morning. Nang told me that she wanted to stay at my hotel rather than having to drive home and back again in the morning. I told her that I had a double bed, so I suggested that I sleep on the floor. Nang didn't say anything. Nang left her ID at reception, which is normal procedure in all hotels in Thailand. After a few minutes, we were in my room. My room was quite small but comfortable. I was thinking about our sleeping arrangements when Nang said to me that she wanted me to spend the night with her in one bed. Believe it or not, I was quite shy at the time. However, nature took its course and we were both okay with it in the end. The next morning, we flew to Koh Samui where we had a nice 3-day holiday. I'd forgotten all about the 50,000 baht that I had sent to Nang, but she brought it up and I told her to consider it a gift. I then checked where she got injured and I saw the small cut was healing on the top of her head. I asked about the car, but she said it had been fixed the next day. Holiday over, Nang went back to work. We had agreed to meet the following evening, but Nang had a little surprise. She had bought some clothes and toiletries so that she could stay at the hotel with me. This came as a bit of a shock to me because we hadn't discussed anything about Nang moving into my hotel, but then I also liked the idea. This arrangement went on for about a week. It was quite nice. She'd go to work in the day. I'd explore the local area. Nang told me one night out of the blue that she was pregnant. I was in total shock and I told her that I wanted to see for myself. So we bought a test kit from a local pharmacy. She did the test and it came back negative. Relieved is an understatement. The next day, Nang was acting a little strange, so I asked her what was wrong. She said she didn't think she'd done the test properly and that she wanted to do another one, so I told her I would help her to do the test properly. We did the test for a second time, and this time it came back positive. Nang didn't ask me anything but put plans into action. She planned a visit to her parents' home, a wedding, photos, and a visit to a female doctor. We must get married and we must go to the doctor now, she said. Things were moving very fast and I just went along with the flow. The female doctor spoke excellent English. She gave Nang an ultrasound scan and on seeing the results said that the baby was about 6 weeks old. Nang didn't react at all. Maybe she didn't understand the implications of this news, but I did. I persisted with a question and asked Nang, well, I've only been here since August the 2nd, so are you sure the scan has given the baby's age correctly? She replied that it will be more positive the following month. But given the measurements, yes, she thought the baby to be about 6 weeks old. I questioned Nang about the baby's age, but she didn't understand my concerns. The next day, after 11 hours of driving, we had reached Nang's home, which was in a province, and although it was night time, it was clear to me that the area was very basic with wooden shacks, dogs roaming free, and nobody speaking English, which I found out later. When the car eventually stopped, I was utterly shocked to see about 100 people standing there waiting to greet us. I didn't know what to expect as we got out of the car. These people started patting me on the back. There were Thai music playing and plenty of alcohol flowing freely. I was completely confused. After meeting Nang's brother, sister and parents, things quietened down quickly and people went off to bed. The next morning, I woke up very early at about 5 a.m. to a lot of noise. There was somebody doing Nang's makeup, a photographer, a monk who was blessing the house, and people were trying coloured string around each other's wrists. Apparently, we were getting married. Not officially, of course, but the Thai way, which is a religious festival, and everybody has a string tied around their wrists. The whole village seemed to be popping in and out of the shack. I was told I would have to give a dowry. Nang had told her father that I will be giving him 200,000 baht. I went into full panic mode as I didn't have that kind of money on me. However, I was told that there was a bank about 50 kilometers away and I could reach it before the ceremony began. I reluctantly agreed. I had a cold shower, took Nang's car and drove to the bank. I couldn't get lost, it was one straight road and they had given me directions, but in hindsight, I really wish I hadn't. Upon my return, I was paraded around the village and then tied to Nang. Well, I think it was Nang. She had so much makeup on that it was hard to tell. Not much more to say about that day except my longing to return to Pattaya. A week later, we were back in Pattaya and my current trip was coming to an end. We spoke about this and Nang told me that I could extend my visa by giving my passport to an agent to go over to Laos. I knew nothing of this procedure, so Nang took me to a shop in Jomtien that provided visa run service. I paid the fee and the next evening I received my passport with a fresh stamp. Nan and I moved into a small apartment together. Nang went to work in the daytime and I hung around the bars on Beach Road. I wanted to get a DNA test but was told I would have to wait until the baby was born. On the next visit to the doctor, we were told that the baby was 10 weeks old. I thought about it again and said to myself, this baby just cannot be mine. It's impossible because of the time frame. As the female doctor spoke very good English, I explained my concerns about the baby. The doctor then translated everything I had told her to Nang. Nang looked at me with a puzzled look as if she had been hurt but said nothing back to the female doctor. I was starting to feel very emotional and I explained to the doctor that she should tell Nang that if the baby wasn't mine, I won't be angry, but it would be better to be honest with me about it because I will find out eventually. I also told her that I wouldn't leave her, but I wanted honesty. Nang insisted that the baby was mine. I eventually just convinced myself that it was. I later found out that Nang was 300,000 baht in debt on credit cards. I find this out by finding a load of receipts in the boot of her car. When I confronted her about this, she said she had tried to help her brother, who had promised to pay her back. She went on to tell me that her brother's wife got very sick and medical bills piled up and he wasn't in a position to pay Nang back. This is crazy, I thought. So much money. I withdrew 300,000 baht, gave it to Nang and told her to clear all of her debt. Nang started talking about moving to the village near her parents' house, which I wasn't keen on. Nang told me that land was very cheap in her village and for about 1 million we could build a nice house. Nothing fancy, but it would be ours to own on our land. She also told me it would be very easy for her to find a job in her area as there was a big accounting firm not too far away from the village. It all sounded so tempting, our own dream home. Nang already has a new car and cheap living. Nang seemed genuinely happy at the thought of moving back to her village with me. The land was about 2 acres and had just been put on the market. We bought it for 700,000 baht. This was on top of the 1 million we would have to pay out to build a house. We weren't looking to build anything too big, just comfortable with maybe 2 bedrooms. After a while, I became quite good friends with Nang's boss in the graphics company. He was looking for investment and offered me a deal that if I put in 1 million baht into his company, I would have full access to it, all of its past orders and records, because the company was doing very well. Obviously, I needed an income if I was to remain in Thailand. I discussed the prospect with Nang and we decided that I should go ahead and invest. Nang put the money into the company's bank account. A couple of days later, Nang was at work and messaged me saying her boss asked me to come in and see him as soon as possible. I made my way to the company to meet her boss. Upon arriving, I found Nang's composure to be slightly uncomfortable. I was later to find out that Thai people don't normally like to show emotion, even with their partners. There were the usual smiles, handshakes and back patting. Nang's boss told me that he had drawn up the draft contract of the business arrangement and as soon as the money was transferred, the deal would be done. But the money has been paid into your bank, I insisted. He double-checked his account in front of me and said, no money has arrived. I explained to him that I had given the money to Nang to deposit into his account. So Nang's boss telephoned through to Nang's office to ask her to join us. But Nang wasn't there, which was unusual because normally in the afternoons she had to work. I didn't find it odd that she was out, as often she had to go out in the afternoons and collect money from other companies. I joined her some afternoons. Nang's boss rang her mobile phone and she picked up. She explained that she couldn't talk as she was with another company boss, but she would be back soon. The boss told her it was urgent, so be as quick as she can. By 4 p.m. she hadn't returned, so I made my way home after telling the boss that I would meet him later in a local bar with Nang. Nang came home at the usual time and I didn't mention anything about it because I wanted to surprise her later. I told her we were going out for a meal and be ready by 7. I told Nang we were going to pop into a bar for a drink along the way to the restaurant, but I didn't mention anything about her boss who was going to also turn up at the bar later. Nang's boss eventually turned up, we shook hands, ordered a drink and had a game of pool. He didn't say anything to Nang and she acted like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. We all decided to have a meal in this bar and eventually the subject of the money came up. Nang didn't want to discuss it, so Nang's boss took her outside alone for a quiet chat. The food eventually turned up, we all ate, then Nang's boss asked me to come to one side and have a chat. He explained to me that Nang had told him the money was gone, but she wouldn't explain how or where. Nang had caused her boss to lose face and I could see he was upset about it, as was I. It transpired later on that Nang had transferred the money to another account and not that of her boss. Everybody in the company stopped talking to her and I think she was told in no uncertain terms that she would have to leave. Nang wanted to move up north to a place which is very close to our land that we had bought. I later found out she had already arranged to rent a house there. The rent was 3,000 baht a month. It was a 2-story townhouse big enough for a business on the ground floor. At this time, Nang was close to giving birth. Part of me still thought that Nang was suffering the effects of being pregnant, hence mood swings, and I put things down to that. But I had to persist asking about my 1 million baht and where had it gone. Eventually, she told me that her brother had problems and needed the money, so she gave it to him to build himself a house near Khon Kaen, about 50 kilometers further north from us. Just like that, no remorse, no understanding that whatever money I had was for us and our little family. Nang had stopped working once we moved north. We thought about how to make money with as little investment as possible, and the idea of the internet cafe cropped up. Another 300,000 baht later, and we had a shop. Baby Pim came exactly on schedule, or in my case, 1 month too early. But she was a sweetheart. We still lived in the same rented place with the money from the shop coming in, but Nang was spending it as fast as it came in. I managed the internet cafe on a daily basis. One day, Nang had enough of not working. She missed her old job, and now she wasn't pregnant. She decided to ask for her old job back. Luckily for her, Nang's old boss employed two useless accountants who had messed up the entire company's finances. So he told Nang, if you could sort it all out within a week, you could have your old job back, and past events would be water under the bridge. It took her about a week to sort it all out. She was a good accountant, actually, whilst I took care of Pim in the office here. Nang really missed work and wanted to return. So after a chat, we decided to pack everything up in our village and relocate the internet shop to the dark side of Pattaya. The house we rented was quite big and had space for a shop to relocate the computers to. By now, the idea of building a house on the land up north was going nowhere as the money was drying up. Nang was earning 30,000 baht a month, and the internet shop earned 15,000 baht per month. Our rent was 15,000 baht a month, and the electric bill was around 8,000 baht because of all of the computers and the air conditioning units we had to use for the customers. We seemed to be struggling all the time financially. Nang would ask for money to help pay for the car again, something that got lost in translation. It was her car, meant it had just been purchased on finance with monthly installments, and the month before I had met her. The monthly payments were 8,000 baht a month, which she hadn't paid for 3 months. Why not? I had a good friend come over to stay for a while. We had a spare room, so he stayed there. One day he could see me in the shop just sitting there thinking. He came in to where I sat and asked me what was wrong. He said I had changed a lot and always looked depressed. I told him what had happened, the whole story, and that I just found out Nang was in debt for another 200,000 baht. Yes, another debt, and we had nothing to show for it. So where had all this money gone? I was nearly out of money, so I couldn't help. Nang showed no remorse except a bowed head when confessing. If we didn't have Pim, I really would have gone back to England there and then. My friend suggested he could lend Nang the money. I refused point blank because I didn't trust her. Nang accepted, but my friend had something else up his sleeve. He said to Nang that he would help this time, but if she ever lied again, he'd make her sell the land up north to get his money back. So Nang had a simple choice. Never borrow money again, and she wouldn't have to pay my friend the 200,000 baht back, or if she did lie, then sell the land up north. It took a week for another bill to come through for something or other, on a different card this time. I went mad. My friend got his bank details and showed Nang the total bill was 237,000 baht, and he wanted his money back in a week. We had arranged for a seller and headed up north. The meeting was quick. An older woman came over to the car with a big brown envelope stuffed with thousands of baht notes. Nang just got in the car and took it. The atmosphere was very frosty, but we soon left. I counted the money. The amount of money in the envelope was 240,000 baht. Where was the rest? This, all I could get, said Nang. You want quick money, so I sell cheap. My friend was glad to see his money. I had had enough of Nang, baby or not. I couldn't stay with her any longer. I had no money left, no options, and no way out either. I sold the computers and got a little money for those. I kept the money and pondered my future. I had no idea where I was going in life. I might even find out that Nang had borrowed even more money. I just didn't care anymore. I took care of Pim, that was it. Nang visited her parents in their village one time. She took Pim for a visit, but when Nang came back, she left Pim up north at her brother's. What the hell was going on? What gave her the right to do that? I always cared for Pim, and she came with me everywhere. So why did Nang do this? It's just another thing they have over us Farangs. Some Thai women think of children as assets and can do with them as they please. I was furious, but had no way of getting Pim back. Nang had assumed Pim to be a burden and decided by herself that Pim should be with her brother's family up north where she would have other children to play with. I decided to leave Nang after that. I had no choice where I'd go or what I'd do, but I couldn't stay with Nang. She could just do with me what she wanted, call the police, take my kid away, lie, build up more debt, anything, and I couldn't live like that anymore. I couldn't fight her. This was her country, not mine, and besides, my visa would expire in a couple of months. Then what was I going to do? Nang could simply refuse to pay it and I'd get deported. There were no obvious escape routes. The only way was if I did it myself. I had gotten to know lots of people, mostly through playing pool, and I decided to ask around if they needed a cleaner or gardener, just some way I could make money to survive. A couple of people gave me little jobs, and one of them said, "There are teacher vacations at my school if you're interested." Well, I was, but I didn't know the qualifications necessary to teach over here. "I'll introduce you and you can make an appointment," he added. The upshot was that I got the job. I worked really hard and I paid my debts off. I got a teaching and TEFL certificate and have been at the school over 5 years now, and I'm back on my feet. When Nang found out I had a good job, she tried to tempt me back by saying she'd bring Pim back to Pattaya and we could be a family again, but I declined her offer. I wanted Pim, but not Nang. I was managing to phone Pim and speak to her thanks to her sister. Nang got wind of it and threatened to take Pim away from her sister's care if she let Pim talk with me again. I'm hoping that Pim might get in touch with me when she's older. She didn't deserve what happened to her. Thanks for listening to what was initially a car crash story, but turned out to be a more of a reconditioned model. Sometimes, even if a person initially ticks all the boxes and has never worked in a bar, all might not be good. A newbie can forget to get to know the other person and not live in dreamland. I got lucky in the end. I've got a good job here and some good friends. I've met many who haven't been so lucky. This all started 10 years ago, and YouTube channels such as yours were not about. But if they were, I'd have been better prepared. So any newbies would do well to listen to advice and the misfortunes of others. Thanks for your channel. Sincerely appreciated by many, I feel. So that is such a such a wild story. He admitted he was a newbie. He went to Thailand. But you do, some guys get reeled in, they fall in love, and it starts off with small debts. And these girls, where does the money go? You can only guess. Thai boyfriends, Thai husbands who are laying in the background there. I never fail to get amazed how these girls can keep Thai guys in the background, set up businesses and families with foreign guys, and it becomes one web of deceit, and it always ends in the same way, in disaster. But hands up, I'll say about this guy, he did well. He managed to pull himself through. It must have been devastating for him, although the daughter Pim, obviously he wasn't the real father, but he's obviously fallen for her and looked at her like it was his child. It must have been devastating. I can't imagine it myself. So to end, what I would say to this guy, if he's still listening, well done to you. You pulled through it, very tough, and I sincerely hope that you will meet Pim one day, sometime in the future. Okay, guys, look, very emotional stories today. Thank you very much for listening. I'll be back next Saturday with a whole bunch of hopefully new stories, and I'll end as I always do. If you're sitting on a story and you're not sure whether to send it in, please do. I'll change names, I'll make it anonymous, and you too can have your story read out right here on Thailand Bound. Thanks for listening to me again, guys. Catch you next week.